every week we read the Pirkei Avot, and contrary maybe to the weekly parasha, we read at the beginning of the week, meaning Shabbat, we read the Pirkei Avot, and the chapter that we are actually reading is for the upcoming Shabbat, not the past Shabbat, contrary maybe to the parasha. So we read something from chapter 3, and I'll quote something, and I want to elaborate on something. I'm not going to quote the whole thing, but I have Pirkei Avot in chapter 3, a adage from a great sage called Akavaya ben Mahalalel. He says, "Istakel b'shlosha dvarim." Look at three things, and those three things are, he quotes a few things. One of them, reflect upon three things, and you will not come to sin. Know from where you came to where you're going, and before who you are destined to give an accounting from where you came. And then he starts explaining from where you came, from a putrid drop. So my question is, why does it list three things to reflect upon first? Then he first says, here are the three things you have to reflect, and then he repeats each one of the three things with elaboration. Why does he do that? Just tell us there's three things and explain it to us, and then finish. Why do you have to go back after you've mentioned already those three reflections and start explaining each one of them one by one while repeating them? So it is related in the Gemara of Sanhedrin that Antinonius was a Greek, as you could see from his name. It was a Greek sage. He was also an emperor. He used to visit Rabbi. Rabbi is Rabbi Yehuda Anasi. And Antoninus said to Rabbi, the body and the soul are able to excuse themselves from judgment. So he tells him, how is so? So he tells him it's very simple. The body says, it is the soul that has sinned. For from the day it was departed from me, I have been lying silent like a rock in the grave. So that's a proof that it's not me, I'm not the problem. When the soul left me, I don't do anything, I don't sin, I'm in the grave, I don't do nothing. On the other hand, the soul, says Antoninus, says, it is the body that has sinned. Why? For from the day that I have departed from it, I have been flying in the air like a bird and not doing any sin. So they're both saying, it's his fault, it's my fault, it's not my fault. So Rabbi was a very smart man, said to him, let me give you a parable. I'll give you a parable to what this can be compared. A king had an orchard with beautiful figs, he tells him. He appointed two guards, one lame and the other blind. The lame one said to the blind one, I see beautiful figs in the orchard. Mount me on your shoulders, and together we will be able to enjoy them. Right? The blind doesn't know how to go. He puts them on his shoulder, and he carries them to the orchard. And they eat a feast of figs. The king once came to the orchard and said to the guards, where are all my beautiful figs? So the lame one said, do I have any feet with which to travel to the figs? And the blind one said, do I have any eyes to see the figs? What did the king do? The king mounted the lame one on the back of the blind one and judged them as a unit. So too, says Rabbi, the day of judgment, Hashem brings the soul and injects it into the body and judges them both together as a unit for their wrongdoing they've committed while upon this earth. So consequently, we understand now why Akavaya ben Mahalalel is addressing the neshama and the body. when he first enumerates three things and then gets into the detail, is specifically while talking to our neshama and talking to our body. The initial three-part statement adds up simply to a reminder to the neshama that it is part of the Almighty God, that it descended from the lofty heights, and that eventually it will need to return to its lofty source. So when Akavaya ben Mahalalel says, remember those three things, he's talking to the neshama. By reflecting on its exalted state, the soul, it will not entertain the thought of sinning. The repetition of the saying with explanatory phrases is addressed to the mundane and unrefined body. By saying, if you will reflect on where you came from, a putrid drop, you would realize how low and insignificant we are. When you will think about where you are going, to maggots and worms, to the body, and before who you will give an accounting, you will immediately realize your worthlessness and not have the audacity to transgress the will of Hashem. And this is the reason why Akavaya ben Mahalalel repeats those three things. First, as a first reflection, talking to the neshama, and the second one in detail, speaking to our body.